Breath of Fire Roman 2. Breath of Fire Roman 2 is a role-playing video game developed and published by Capcom. First released in 1994, the game was licensed to Laguna for European release in 1996. It is the second entry in the Breath of Fire series. It was later ported to Game Boy Advance and re-released worldwide. The game was released on Wii's Virtual Console in North America on August 27, 2007. Nintendo of Europe's website mistakenly announced it for release on July 27, 2007, but it was in fact released 2 weeks later, on August 10, 2007. In 2013, it was released for the Wii U Virtual Console. In 2016, it was released for the new Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console. In 2019, it was released for the Nintendo Switch SNES Games Library. Unlike later installments in the series, Breath of Fire Roman 2 is a direct sequel to Breath of Fire. Set 500 years after the original game, the story centers on an orphan named Ryu Bateson, whose family vanished mysteriously long ago. After his friend is falsely accused of a crime, Ryu embarks on a journey to clear his name. Gameplay. Breath of Fire Roman 2 is a traditional role-playing video game featuring two-dimensional character sprites and environments. Players view the game from a top-down perspective and move their characters in 4 directions across various environments including towns and dungeons, while interacting with non-player characters and battling enemies to advance the story. The game features a redesigned, text-based game menu as opposed to the icon-based design of the original Breath of Fire, as well as a new monster meter that indicates the probability of encountering enemy monsters in a given area. Players are required to venture into dangerous areas throughout the game world as dictated by the story, and randomly encounter enemies every few steps which must be defeated to advance. As the game progresses, new characters, each with their own specific abilities, join the player's party. Like the previous game, only 4 characters may be in a party at a given time, but now may not be freely switched outside of certain areas. Each character has a unique personal action that may be performed outside of combat that allows the player to access certain areas, destroy objects, avoid traps, or move about the game more easily. Breath of Fire Roman 2 includes a new town building feature that allows the player to populate their own village with special characters found throughout the game. Each character has their own distinct job and may be invited to live in houses that the player adds by donating currency to one of 3 carpenters, each with their own building style. 6 special inhabitants known as shamans may also join the town, each with their own elemental alignment, and up to 2 at a time may be fused with party members to grant them new forms and abilities. While joined with a shaman, characters become stronger and may gain access to additional abilities while in battle. Combat in Breath of Fire Roman 2 is presented using a turn-based approach, where the player inputs commands for each character at the start of each round with the actions taking place by order of each character's and enemy's agility rating. New formation feature allows the player to organize their party into different positions, allowing certain members an increase in speed, defense, or attack power. Players win battles by defeating every enemy present, dealing damage by using normal attacks along with magic spells and items. When all enemies are defeated, they yield experience points that go toward leveling up characters, making them stronger, and giving them access to new spells. Each character's health is represented by numerical hit points that indicate their remaining vitality, and are knocked out if the value reaches 0, with the battle ending if each member of a player's party is knocked out. Progress is recorded using the game cartridge's internal battery backup memory, which can be accessed at dragon statues throughout gameplay. Plot. Characters. The characters of Breath of Fire Roman 2 were designed by Capcom artist Tatsuya Yoshikawa, who also provided artwork for the cast of the previous game. Breath of Fire Roman 2 features 9 playable characters who join the player's party at set points throughout the story, each with their own selection of attacks, magic spells, and personal actions which can be used to pass certain obstacles and solve puzzles. The main protagonist is a 16-year-old boy named Ryu Bateson, who shares his name with the main character from the original Breath of Fire, who mysteriously finds himself alone in the world one day after his father and sister disappear and all townspeople in his village forget who he is. As a member of the elusive dragon clan, Ryu possessed the ability to transform into powerful draconic beings with destructive abilities, and makes his way as a ranger, a sword for hire. He is joined by his friend and fellow ranger, Bobach Doggy in the Japanese version, a thief and member of the Grassrunner clan of dog people who uses a crossbow and healing spells. Throughout the game, players recruit additional characters at different points in the story, including Cat Rinpu Chuen in the Japanese version, a member of the Warren clan of cat people who fights at a coliseum, Rand Marks, muscular pangolin person who fights with his bare hands, Nina Windia, descendant of the original Nina from Breath of Fire and princess of a clan of winged humans who was exiled due to her black wings, a bad omen in her country. An optional character in the form of the immortal sorceress Blue Days in the Japanese version from the original Breath of Fire may also be recruited. Story. Breath of Fire Roman 2 is set in a fantasy world 500 years after the events of the original game. The story opens on Ryu, age 6, who lives in the village of Gate with his sister Yua and father Gainer, a priest for the Church of Saint Eva. Years earlier, Ryu's mother disappeared when demons erupted from a hole in a mountain on the outskirts of town, which was eventually blocked by a large dragon who sacrificed its life to stop the invasion. One day, after visiting the lifeless dragon near the mountainside, Ryu returns to find his family missing and no one in the village remembers who he is. Believing him to be an orphan, the townsfolk send him to live at the church with Father Hulk. It is there that he meets Bo, a fellow orphan who convinces Ryu to run away with him to a big city and live as thieves. Upon leaving the village, the two seek shelter in a cave during a storm, where they encounter an enormous demon named Baruberry, who claims that Ryu is the destined child, knocks the two unconscious, and disappears. 10 years later, Ryu and Bo live together in hometown as members of a Rangers Guild, who are tasked with finding the lost pet of Mina, princess of the Kingdom of Windia. The two reluctantly complete the task, and upon their return, Bo is charged with stealing from a local rich man named Trout. Bo claims he was framed by a mysterious winged thief. Both escape the town the following night, and Bo remains in hiding while Ryu leaves to find the real thief and clear his friend's name. Making his way to Corsair, a town with a large coliseum, to gather information, he becomes a challenger in the arena against Cat, the Coliseum's most popular fighter. In defeating her, Ryu gains her trust when he reveals the organizer is possessed by a demon. They defeat the demon with the help of Rand, an employee at the Coliseum. After visiting Bo once again, Rand stays behind to help construct the hideout while Ryu and Cat travel back to the scene of the crime. There, they meet Nina, a young girl studying magic. When her younger sister is kidnapped by a gang in an effort to blackmail Nina, Ryu and Cat resolve to help them and ultimately defeat the gang's leader, who is also a demon in disguise. The trio make their way to Windia. They quickly find themselves expelled from the castle due to Nina's black wings. They meet a trickster named Sten, who accompanies them after Ryu spares him for trying to con them. Upon arrival at the port town of Capitan, Ryu meets a shaman who taps into his latent ability to transform into a dragon, revealing him to be a part of the dragon clan thought missing for hundreds of years. They also encounter Ray, a wandering priest of Saint Eva whom the party assists in rescuing a number of villagers from Capitan's dry well. Afterwards, Bo's hideaway is rebuilt and Rand rejoins the party. Upon traveling to a new continent, the group meets Jean, a frog prince whose castle of Sema Fort has been usurped by an impostor. After Jean fails to best the impostor in a cooking challenge, Ryu and his friends defeat him in his true demonic form. The group finally catches the real thief, a bat-winged girl named Patty, who they turn over to Trout. Bo rejoins the group, but is worried about Patty despite her actions. He and Ryu break into Trout's house at night and find Patty in a secret dungeon, along with several other residents. Trout is also possessed by a demon and engages Ryu and Bo in combat, but is defeated. Suspecting the demon outbreak to be part of a larger problem, the party searches the world for the grassman Spar, who is said to be able to communicate with plants. Upon rescuing Spar from the clutches of a traveling sideshow, the group consults with the Great Wise Tree and discover that he is losing his memory. He requests that the party acquire the therapy pillow from the city of Tunlin, a quest that first necessitates retrieving the famous flute from Sten's hometown of Highfort so that they can enter his mind to restore it. In doing so, they discover the underlying reason why the people of Gate had forgotten Ryu. A demon named Aruhamaru had used dark magic to erase their memories of him and his family, and he is now doing the same to the Great Wise Tree's memories. Once the group vanquishes Aruhamaru, they learn that the demon outbreak is linked to Gate, Ryu's hometown where all the trouble started, and that the Church of Saint Eva may not be all that it seems. Investigating further, the team joins with a group of rebels who plan to storm the religion's main church located on an island inaccessible by sea, where Rand's mother Daisy has been taken captive. Hoping to use the power of flight, Nina returns to Windia and inquires about the Mark of the Wing, an old relic that will allow her to transform into the Great Bird. After consorting with the spirit of the original Nina from Breath of Fire, Nina plans to undergo a ceremony that will transform her into a bird permanently, but is stopped by her sister Mina, who takes her place, sacrificing her humanity. Traveling on Mina, the group makes their way to the church and they sneak inside. It is revealed that the religion is a front for a demon lord who uses the prayers of the people to empower itself. While pursuing the high priest, Ray blocks their path and attacks the party in dragon form, revealing himself as a member of the dragon clan. The battle awakens a powerful new dragon form in Ryu, which he uses to vanquish Ray. The party then rescues Daisy, who sacrifices herself in a trap so that Rand can continue fighting. In the bowels of the church, they find Ryu's father Gainer attached to a large energy-draining machine, having been kidnapped by Aruhamaru 10 years ago. Ryu and his friends rescue him and escape the church as it self-destructs, making their way back to Gate to stop the demon's plot once and for all. In Gate, they meet Father Hulk, the pastor who took over the Gate Church years ago after Gainer was imprisoned. In order for Father Hulk to open the seal in the mountain, he needs a member of the Dragon Clan. Ryu and friends are tricked into bringing him the thief Patty, whose heritage reveals her to be Yua, Ryu's sister. Father Hulk then reveals himself as the demon Habaruku, founder of the Church of Saint Eva, and Ryu and company slay him. The dragon at the mountain dissipates and transforms into the spirit of a woman, Ryu's mother Valerie, a member of the dragon clan who traveled from their hiding place in the mountain years ago and married Ryu's father, later sacrificing herself to save the town. Ryu and his team enter the cave, traveling deep underground to the demon stronghold. After gaining the ultimate dragon power of Anfini, Ryu battles Baruberi, the demon from his past. After vanquishing him, the party confronts his master, Deathevan, leader of the Saint Eva religion revealed to be a remnant of Myria, the mad goddess from the previous game. After unleashing his full strength, Ryu defeats Deathevan and returns home with two possible endings based on whether the player rescued his father from the St. Eva Church, either sacrificing himself like his mother by transforming into a dragon to prevent further demon encroachment, or by having Gainer pilot a floating land mass on top of the mountain and seal it off for good. Development. Breath of Fire Roman 2 was developed by many of the same Capcom employees who worked on the previous game, including producer Tokuro Fujiwara and lead designer Yoshinori Kawano. The character designs for the original Breath of Fire were conceived by company head of development Keiji Inafune. The cast of Breath of Fire Roman 2 was created entirely by artist Tatsuya Yoshikawa, who had previously only provided promotional art for the game's predecessor. Unlike the original Breath of Fire, which was licensed to Squaresoft for its North American release, the English version of Breath of Fire Roman 2 was localized and published entirely by Capcom USA. The game was released in North America 1 year after the Japanese version in December 1995, and would later become the first Breath of Fire title to become available in Europe in April 1996. 3 days before the release of the original Breath of Fire on Nintendo's Game Boy Advance in July 2001, Capcom announced that they would similarly port Breath of Fire Roman 2 to the handheld, with an initial release date sometime in 2002. Like the re-release of its predecessor, the handheld version features redrawn character portraits in menu screens, new still images used in cutscenes throughout the game, and a redesigned battle interface similar to Breath of Fire Roman 4. New features include a dash button that allows players to move through the game faster, as well as an item sharing system where two players may link together using the Game Boy Advance linked cable to exchange items between game cartridges. To celebrate the game's release in December 2001, Capcom of Japan held an art contest for fans to submit artwork featuring characters from the first two Breath of Fire games, with the winner chosen by the Game Boy Advance version's staff. In January 2002, Capcom USA announced that an English version of Breath of Fire Roman 2 would be heading to North America the following April. A European version would also be released in July 2002, published by Ubisoft. Audio. While the background music for the original Breath of Fire was composed by 4 members of Capcom's sound team Alph Lila, the score for Breath of Fire Roman 2 was written entirely by series newcomer Yuko Takehara. In January 1995, the Breath of Fire Roman 2 Shimai no Ko original soundtrack was released in Japan by Sony Records, and featured 28 selected themes from the game on a single disc. A complete musical selection from the title would not be made commercially available until 2006, with the release of the Breath of Fire original soundtrack special box, which contained all music from the first 5 games of the series. In order to promote the game, Capcom hired J-pop singer Mio Watanabe to record a theme song that played during the game's television commercial in Japan called Waranai Ai Jong Waranai Ai, lit. Unending Love, which was released as a single in December 1994 by Alpha Records. Reception. Breath of Fire Roman 2 was released the same week as Sony's PlayStation console in Japan, and debuted on Japanese software charts as the 7th highest-selling game of its first week with 89,700 copies. It was given an 8 out of 10 in two separate Reader Cross reviews printed by Famicom Tsushin, and it would go on to sell a total of 350,000 copies in the region by the end of 1995. The game became popular enough to be re-released in the region for the Nintendo Power Flash RAM peripheral in September 1997 at a reduced price. Reviews in North America were mixed to positive. The four reviewers of Electronic Gaming Monthly generally found the game worth getting for its high-quality sound and lengthy quest. Though Mark Lefebvre felt the graphics were below average and that the game overall could have been a little better, the other three reviewers were more enthusiastic, praising the graphics and the shaman mechanic. GamePro's Major Mike was also impressed with the sheer length of the RPG. While remarking that there are very few cinematic scenes compared to the first Breath of Fire, he was pleased with the complexity of both the main story and most of the side quests. He also complimented the graphics and the change to different musical themes halfway through the game, and summarized, "This long, absorbing game offers plenty of story turns, intense battles, and intriguing characters." A reviewer for Next Generation said that the game is larger and more involved than its predecessor, but unfortunately also much less interesting. While some parts are very clever, you are able to build your hometown, populating it with stray homeless folks you run across. It suffers from too little direction, a purely mechanical storyline, and the clunkiest dialogue since Night Trap. Similar to the original Super Nintendo Entertainment System release, the Game Boy Advance version met with mostly positive reception from critics, with the Japanese version receiving a 29 out of 40 score from Weekly Famitsu magazine. GameSpot compared the game to the previous version, calling it a faithful translation of the SNES game, and praised the title's new save feature allowing players to record their progress at any time, but found that its music leans toward the bland side of things and lacks personality. IGN found the game to be a step up from the first game's Game Boy Advance port, stating that the storyline and characters make Breath of Fire Roman 2 a much better game than the first adventure in the series, even though the game hasn't changed a whole lot. The website additionally felt that the game's lack of spaces in text fields and shoddy translation hurt the overall presentation, and the graphics were not up to par with games designed initially for the handheld such as Camelot's Golden Sun. GamePro awarded the Game Boy version a perfect score as well as an Editor's Choice Award, stating that the only flaw was the game's low difficulty, declaring that in the realm of today's high-powered next-gen role players, Bofei is an excellent time killer. The game would later be nominated for Best Port of a 16-bit Classic and Best Role-Playing Game on Game Boy Advance in GameSpot's Best and Worst of 2002 awards. The Game Boy Advance version holds a 75% review average on Game Rankings, as well as an 81% average on Metacritic. Breath of Fire Roman 2's Virtual Console release in 2007 met with mixed response. GameSpot called attention to the title's pleasing visual presentation and breadth of content, but found the game's localization to be terrible along with unpolished gameplay mechanics that made it appear to be a hasty, careless effort. The game's pacing was also said to be poor, with too many mundane tasks laden throughout the story, recommending it to players who could look past its rough edges. IGN called the game's translation average at best, with the lack of adequate spacing in text fields still present, yet ultimately calling it a solid, enjoyable RPG experience. Though not a role-playing masterpiece on the level of Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger. Eurogamer called attention to the game's high rate of random battles, but nonetheless called the game a beautifully crafted and impeccably produced adventure. In 2006, Nintendo Power ranked the game 171st in its list of the top 200 games released across all Nintendo consoles, 10 places behind the original Breath of Fire.